Hello and welcome to Tech Deals. I'm Tech and this is
Rogue.
We are building an AMD Athlon 200GE $300 budget computer. Now this is the second video in this series. I've already done a parts overview. Link to that down in the video description below, along with all the parts, both in the $300 version of the build as well as the upgraded version that we're going to show you today. But you really can build a complete $300 AMD Athlon 200GE with Vega 3 graphics that will play games without a dedicated graphics card, case, power supply, RAM, SSD, motherboard, the whole 9 yards, or at least 8.5 of them, for $300. Now those links down in the description below do support us, and we did buy most of the stuff that you see here on the desk. So if you find this video series interesting, informative, funny, useful, or whatever, please use those when shopping. It really does help. Now I am going to be doing a lot of the talking because I talk very well.
But I'm going to be concentrating.
Rogue is going to be...
This is my first build, so it's like...
That is correct. Rogue is going to be building this computer and I'm going to be providing guidance. Have you ever built a computer before?
No.
Any kind of computer?
No.
Ever, even 20 years ago?
No.
So this is your first time putting a CPU onto a motherboard, RAM, the motherboard into a case, connecting to a power supply,
Yep.
putting an SSD on,
Yep.
turning it on, and going...
Seeing if it works.
I was going to say abracadabra, but thankfully this isn't magic. And if any of you are watching this video thinking, man, building a computer sounds like fun, or it's interesting, or I'd like to give it a try, but I'm nervous or scared because I've never done it before, it's like Lego. It's putting parts together.
That's
These are
true.
all it is.
Yep.
They're all, you've seen me do it many times.
I have.
These are standardized parts that just simply snap and plug together.
Yep.
They screw into the same spots.
Yep.
They're all designed to fit. You know, an ATX board fits into ATX cases, fits with an ATX power supply.
Oh, you mean I can't put an ATX board in a ITX case?
No. Well, if you get a Dremel and saw the bottom off, maybe.
Yeah, that wouldn't work.
Fold it in half. I'm sure.
Oh, there we go.
Just put it on the side of the
Just
table.
tape it on the top.
Oh, we'll cut a hole in the top of the case and have it stick out.
There you go.
There we go.
I at least know that.
She knows lots of things. Can you believe you've watched me build how many computers now?
A lot.
So she's seen me build them.
I've seen, yes.
Well, she started watching, and then usually about 3 minutes in, she finds something interesting on her iPhone to look at.
That's not true.
It isn't?
No.
Aw, thank you, my love. Now, for those of you who are curious, Rogue is my lovely, beautiful wife of nearly 15 years now. She deserves a medal for that.
Achievements.
Achievements. She is the mother of our 3 beautiful children, which you have seen featured on our channel. And she's been in some other videos, chair videos, the green screen review, the E3 videos that we did. Yep. She was in the first Remove You handheld gyro stabilized camera videos that we did. You did an outside one.
I did.
She's been in some of the Floatplane exclusive videos that are over on Floatplane. Link to Floatplane down in the video description below. Floatplane is a subscriber-only media service run by Linus Media Group. Yes, that Linus. It's $3 a month, at least when we're recording this. And in addition to early access, no YouTube ads, you also have, there's about 20 exclusive videos over there that aren't on YouTube.
True.
The main reviews, the graphics card reviews, the builds, those will be on both YouTube and Floatplane, but there are some fun ones, including, do you remember our trip to see a Tesla at the Tesla store?
I did.
And we went to the Microsoft store.
We did.
And we've done a variety of other excursions out of the office and house that are only on Floatplane.
In the real world.
The outside game.
The real pixels.
The VR out there is amazing. Hang on. I hear it's ray traced out there.
It just works.
It just works. Including, you did a walkabout with the Remove You, walking around outside.
I did.
I remember that. That's over on Floatplane. Everybody should go subscribe to
They
Floatplane.
should. Come over and check it out.
It directly supports the channel.
It does.
And that money helps us stay independent and give you our views on everything and buy this stuff and show it to you. And for a couple of bucks a month, it's greatly appreciated. And with that entire preamble out of the way, do you have anything you'd like to add before we get to building this awesome computer?
No.
Do you know what I love about this computer?
What? The price?
Well, I do like the price. I love the value. I love the fact that you can put together an actual, functional, useful computer for $300. Now, you weren't here when I did the parts overview. I did that very quickly to make that a short, sweet video. But when I was growing up...
I was there. I watched you.
Well, yeah, you were over there. You weren't in the video.
No, I wasn't in the video.
People watching the video don't know that you were sitting just
I
next to
was
the
sitting
camera.
and listening to the whole thing.
You gave me a thumbs up.
I did give you a thumbs up. I gave you 2 thumbs up.
I appreciate that. It wasn't that long ago that even putting together a basic computer for $1,000 was a challenge.
And here we are with a $300 computer.
And it's not just a computer, it's an actual useful computer with a boot SSD,
Yep.
with 8 gigabytes of RAM,
Yep.
a 500 watt power supply for future expansion,
Yep.
a full-size ATX B450 board that's overclockable, has 4 RAM slots, and this board is in the $300 budget.
That's true.
Frankly, the board is probably overkill for this budget, and you could do like $250 or $275 with a cheaper board, but this gives you expansion. Upgradability. The AM4 socket, you could go to a Ryzen 7 with this.
Yeah, you could.
I would absolutely put a Ryzen 7 in this board.
Yep.
So it's a great starter system.
It is.
And it's a nice case. It's not one of those cheap $20, cases where you'll cut your hand on the metal.
Don't want that.
No, well, you've seen those.
I have.
And no, they're
No.
good. So, $300? Wow.
It's a bargain.
I love deals.
No.
Tell everybody how much I love deals.
Ooh.
I can find deals in a $300 computer, and I can find deals in a $3,000 computer.
It's very true.
Right now, she's probably sitting here going, aren't we? I thought we were building a computer. Yes, but it gives everybody a chance. We've done live streams together.
Yes.
And we've done some other ancillary videos.
Yes.
But to the best of my knowledge, this is the first time that we've stood up in front of the camera, both wearing microphones.
Yep.
They're 2 different audio recorders, and we're going to put them together in post, and I hope the audio is decent. And if you're listening to this and the audio is not great or it sounds off, we'll post-process as much as we can. We're working on the audio.
Yes,
we have a separate wireless adapter for this to make them both go in, but that's for the next video. This is the first real Tech Deals video we have done together.
You're watching it first.
First. I don't know about all of you in the audience, but I am hyped to have my wife next to me rather than just sitting over there or off doing something else. I've always wanted a partnership in my business with my wife, and you've done a variety of other things, including, have 3 children, which, I hear is a little bit of a work. It's almost like a job. Hang on, I'll just move over this way before I get swatted. No, it really is. I wouldn't trade jobs with her for anything because I've seen that job and I don't want it. All right. So with that funness out of the way, hopefully you guys are all having fun, sitting back, relax, get your cup of coffee. Tech doesn't have us coffee.
Oh, I don't know why.
We need Jeeves to go get us
We
coffee.
do.
Hey, we have 3 children. We should train them to get us coffee. Hang on. Oh, they're not coming. Anyway, okay, enough nonsense. You can see all the parts on the desk here. We've got the motherboard, we've got the RAM, SSDs, power supply. We're gonna move this out of the way here to give us room here. Now, we have been recording this entire time, although most of this will be front cam. We won't turn it on until this point. But we have been recording with the overhead camera. Now, the challenge to this is we're gonna have to put us in the corner and the overhead camera, which you can see right here, the full screen, because there's really no white space left to put the camera. And we're using the big G in the middle of our Gamers Nexus mat as our focal point for the overhead.
That's Steve, right?
Thanks to Steve from Gamers Nexus for sending this very nice mod mat. These are not inexpensive, but would you not agree that the material is way above the mouse pads and the felt pads?
Yeah, and we have used it a lot.
These are $100.
$100?
But it is an anti-static surface designed not to be conductive. It does have the little wrist strap thingy over there, which I don't use because, I don't.
No.
But it is a proper surface, and you're not going to damage your table or your stuff putting it on here.
Correct.
So with that being said, I'm going, oh, she's running me off the screen already. Holy smokes. In front of us, we have, do you know what this is called, my dear?
A B450 Tomahawk motherboard.
I was just going for motherboard, but
MSI motherboard.
it is an MSI motherboard. And so as we go through this, I'm just going to talk through it. I might overkill it with the talking, but you know.
No.
This is your first time, and I sort of default. Some of the build videos on my channel are 2 hours long.
So if I get intense, it's because it's brand new.
She's absorbing the
And you all know
information.
what that looks like from the live videos.
She's like,
Process, 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 process.
it is processing, but what I want to do is over-explain it, and if at some point you got it, just say, I got it, because
I got it.
building a computer is very much this is also meant to be an advice video to people watching who have never done it before and they want a longer, detailed guide. I've done 2-hour builds. I've done 20-minute builds.
Well, let's not make this 6.
No, but the 20-minute builds don't really have enough detail for a first built-time builder.
That's correct.
The 2-hour build does.
First time builder.
So this is meant for a first-time builder. So,
That's a good title.
first-time builder? First-time lucky. I love you. Yes. So this is our AM4 socket right here.
Yep.
This is different than an Intel socket. I won't get into the differences here, but be aware that what I'm about to show and discuss is AMD, not Intel.
Correct.
This is called a ZIF, or zero insertion force socket, and this lever right here lifts sideways and lifts up, and it actually opens up the pins. It allows the CPU to simply drop into place. You do not push a CPU in. Once the CPU is resting in place, you lower it down, and then it's simply locked into place. There is one corner that is different than all the others. So when you line up the CPU, simply look for the square corner as opposed to the diagonals.
Yes.
You can't do it wrong if you simply look at the CPU and go, one corner is not like the others.
Okay.
These connectors right here are for an AM3 style cooler, or you can unscrew these 4 screws, take the plastic clips off, and put an AM4 style cooler into the back plate that is actually on the board. That comes with the board, and so that provides direct screw access. So it just depends on the cooler you use.
Right.
As far as the rest of it goes, we'll cover that later. But I want to talk about the socket first, because the first thing we want to do before we put the motherboard in the computer is put the CPU on the motherboard. Easier to do out here when it's easily accessible rather than in your computer. Another piece of advice, if you don't have a Gamer's Nexus mod mat, if you don't have a quality surface, use your motherboard box. Put your motherboard on the box, not on the plastic bag in the box, put it on the cardboard. The cardboard's not conductive. It's not the perfect solution, but compared to a kitchen table or a glass table or some other random surface, do it on your motherboard box. So just a little bit of tidbit there.
Okay.
So as far as this goes, I am going to give you the CPU, and this is our AMD Athlon 200GE, and I'm going to give you the fish knife box cutter, just cut straight to the seal right there. We've never opened this. Now this is not a Wraiths Cooler like that comes with the Ryzen chips. It is a Zen processor, meaning it's the same Zen cores as the Ryzen chips, but the cooler is the older style cooler. And you're gonna see here we have installation instructions. Well, you have me, so you know. You will notice here that we've got the CPU. I'm just turning it for the camera.
Yep.
There is a sticker here if you want to put it on the front of your case.
Yep.
And then you've got AMD Athlon 200GE.
Yep.
And I love the fact that it comes in these nice protective holders. And if you look in the corner, that right there, they can't see it on camera, but we will in a minute. See the square right there?
Yep.
So that's what's going to go right here. So actually the CPU faces this direction. We'll do that in a minute.
Okay.
Then we're going to take a look at the cooler. This is the kind of cooler that comes with the Athlons. The round one you've seen is the Wraiths Cooler.
Yes.
The Wraiths Coolers, you unscrew these 4 screws, take the plastic off, and put it directly onto the board. They're nicer coolers.
Right.
This is a $50 or $60 CPU, so they're cheaper.
Right.
This is just a flat block of aluminum. It comes with pre-applied thermal paste. We do not have to apply our own thermal paste. But if we want to take this off and put it back on, we'll need thermal paste.
then you'll
It's a one-time use only.
Okay.
And then these clips and these clips
Yep.
go here and here. So we will use these clips on the board for this. And you can see it's a lovely high-quality cooler. It isn't really. But this is a 2-core 4-thread chip, so it's fine. Another thing to think about, and this is for first-time builders, think about this.
Where are you going to plug that?
This is a lovely, not black cable that's ugly, but whatever.
Yep.
You want to think about where it's going to plug, and you might think you could plug it in right here, but you're not going to, because actually your CPU plug is right here.
Okay.
So you're actually going to want to put it like this and have this plug in over here.
Ah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Do you notice this lever right here?
Yes.
This is a pull lever designed to pull this up and make it tight.
Oh. Okay.
So you put this side in first.
And then.
The Wraith coolers are so much better than these.
Okay.
Folks, if you have an extra $40, get a Ryzen 3 2200G instead of the Athlon 200GE. I'm seriously, I cannot begin to say the cooler's better. It's a true 4-core chip. The graphics are twice the speed.
Yeah.
This is
2 cores, 4 threads. Right?
This is 2 cores, 4 thread with Vega 3, and there's Vega 8.
Yeah.
It's double the performance.
Right.
So I'm going to actually.
Hang on, I gotta put this one.
You gotta put the CPU on first.
Right.
I was getting ahead of myself.
Yeah, you were.
Now the CPU will just pop out if you open it like that.
Like this?
Yes. The CPU will just go flying out. You have to open it like this, and you have to lift the top off slowly. It's because it's not held in there. It will fall right out.
Okay.
So let's put that back in there. Even if I demonstrate it, I'm going to put it back together and let you do it.
Mm-hmm.
Grab it by the sides. Nope, the other sides.
These sides?
Yep.
Okay.
And then take a look at the triangle.
So there's the square.
There's something important you have to do on the motherboard.
What? Oh,
Lever.
I have to lift the thing up.
Yes. Yeah, you can do that. You're fine. There you go.
Okay.
And grab the CPU by the edges. Make sure that the triangle is here.
It's gonna go like that.
Yes. And you're going to just rest the CPU, all these several thousand pins, and all those several thousand pins. There you go. Just gently set it there. And
Does a little click thing?
yeah, it does a little thing. I'll do that again for the camera just so you can see. When you have it lined up, if it's not lined up right, it actually is sitting. You see how that's sitting up?
Doesn't look right.
And if you just shift it a bit, but use this is not this is, I don't even want to use the word pressure. It's just gentle, just nudge.
It's like you gotta.
But you notice how it's clearly flushed down now.
Yes. So
Lower the lever.
lower the lever, and it goes under.
You've now installed your first CPU. That's all there is to it.
Okay.
Please be aware, everybody watching, Intel and AMD are completely different in the way they install. So don't watch this and try to install an Intel CPU the same way.
Oh, so AMD.
Yes.
All right.
Because on Intel chips, the pins are in the socket and the bottom of the CPU are pads. It's reverse. And there's pressure levers. It's completely different setup.
Completely, all right.
So take your cooler.
Right, here's my cooler.
And you want to make sure the cable's on the top.
So the cable is going to be on this side, right?
There you go. You want to put this side in first on that clip. This is an important part. Once you push it down onto the CPU, it needs to stay, which means you want to line it up. Do you see how you're going to block it? Mm-hmm. See how it pushes across?
Oh.
You want to line it up where it needs to go. When you push down on this, don't lift it up again.
All right. Yeah, it's like wobbly.
I know. These clip coolers are awful.
How do I?
There you go. And then rotate that around. Yep.
Like that?
Yep.
Woo!
You just installed your first cooler. But compared to trying to figure that out on your own, is that not easier to have either video or guidance to install that?
Oh, totally.
Because if you're just looking at it, you're like, huh?
Very flimsy.
The Wraith stealth cooler that comes with the Ryzen 3 2200G for $40 more, you would unscrew those 4 screws, you would simply put it straight down into the holes, and you'd simply screw the 4 screws straight in.
That's it?
It's very simple.
Oh, wow.
It's the easiest thing in the world. It's the Wraith coolers are wonderful.
Okay, that's much easier.
But it is what it is. Hey, it's $59. What do you want? Mm-hmm. And so now we're going to take this, and you're going to plug it into there.
So
It only goes one way, because if you look on the socket, you'll see this piece of plastic. That piece of plastic goes between those 2 grooves.
Oh.
I know.
Like that.
Exactly. No worries. Now you notice how this is kind of like this?
Flopping.
When we put this in the computer, you're going to have a power connector here, you'll have case fans here, you'll have RAM. We'll tie it down and take a look. And it could also be repositioned either around here or...
Does that not get hot?
You'd think it's more decorative than anything else.
Oh.
The idea is that it cools the voltage regulators. The problem is it's a solid piece of metal.
Oh.
If it was actually cooling anything, it would be made out of fins, like the heat sink.
Okay.
This doesn't actually get that hot.
All right, good.
It's a good theory.
But pretty.
It's mostly decorative, to be completely blunt. A lot of people look at motherboards and they go, well, that one doesn't have heat sinks and this does. Yeah, but they're solid blocks of metal. How much heat do you think that's going to conduct?
All right, so what's next?
All right. Now we're going to put the SSD on because, again, that's easier to install here than when you're in the case.
Okay.
This particular motherboard has a single M.2 slot, and that is right here.
Yes.
The screw is already in place right here.
Yes.
So now you need to get your handy dandy screw. Well, we had all this laid out the other night. I will
Tag, you're it.
text it. And we're back after getting some water and some screwdrivers. It is a number 1 50 millimeter.
Yep, number 1, 50 millimeter.
So the reason for this is because you need a very small screwdriver to undo this screw. If you don't, you'll just strip it if you use a normal full-size screwdriver. It is magnetic, but there's not enough screw there to hold on to.
No, there's really not.
There really isn't. So that has to be taken off. Go ahead and open up our SSD. Now this is a M.2 SSD. It is not an NVMe SSD. It is a SATA SSD. M.2 is an interface, not a protocol. You can have SATA SSDs that are M.2. You can have SATA SSDs that are 2.5 inch.
Is there an easy way to take it out?
Bend the plastic away rather than bend the SSD.
So I'm gathering that this one will go under here because of that.
Yes, it goes in at a 30-degree angle.
So does it slide like right?
Yes. On top of the metal fingers right there on the board. Nope.
Right there?
Yep. Right up at the top.
Oh, right.
Nope, no, too much angle.
There?
30 degrees.
There?
Yes. Push it in.
Okay.
Now, you notice it sits at that angle.
Yes.
You'll notice is that we push it down, it just does this.
Yes. So
That's normal.
So we have to screw it in.
That's why it needs a good screw. She said it.
I did not say that. That's tricky.
This helps with an extra hand.
It does.
Yes.
That is one tiny little...
Can I show you a trick?
Yes.
I mean, I know you're trying to do it, but I'll show you a trick. This is what fingernails are good for.
Ah.
See? Give that a try.
Fingernails. Fingernails that I don't have.
Well, you're the girl and I'm the boy, so clearly that's about right. I'm sorry, I'm not laughing at her.
Yes, you are. You're clearly laughing at
I
me.
am amused at the situation.
There.
See, she got it.
Got it.
First try. Now that our SSD is installed, the RAM will go in later because it sticks up too much and there's too many other things that's going to go in.
Okay.
So at this point, there's nothing else to put onto the board until it's into our computer.
There you go.
So what we're going to do is we're going to set this, we're going to use the motherboard box for exactly what I said.
Okay.
Although we're going to use the back so we have a pretty box.
Oh.
Because the bottom of the board will punch small holes into the box.
Oh.
So we don't care about the back so much, but we're going to set that there.
Okay.
And then you're going to pick up the case and you're going to lay it flat right here.
I quite like this one.
Oh, it's very light.
Does it matter which way you lay it?
Yes, because the camera is up that way, so it needs to go that way.
That way?
Yes. Now, inside the case, and this is going to be true, I will get to that. Inside cases, when they're new, there's going to be all sorts of accessories that you're going to need to get out first. When you buy a case, there's usually a box or a bag or something twist-tied inside that's going to have all the mounting screws and posts and all the fun stuff. And as Rogue has already commented, she sees it down in there, and the easiest way to get it is to reach into the hole and just pull it out.
It's Christmas.
And there are screws and twist ties. And if you reach in there, you will see, now those,
That is something.
you can't see them on camera. What she's grabbing right there are the front panel connectors, the USB 3 connector, the power switch, reset switch, the hard drive LED light. So you can't see them, but that's what's down there. We'll deal with those once we take the other side off. So as Rogue takes the plastic stuff off, twist ties are wonderful. Make sure you save these. These things are absolutely wonderful. You've got a bunch of screws and posts right there. In fact, go ahead and take your motherboard and scoot it off to the side a bit.
Scooching.
There you go. Open this up and lay it out right there so we can see what we've got.
All right, we got thick ones.
In this case, you've got standoffs. You cannot just put the motherboard directly in because it would contact the back.
It has to do the thing.
These standoffs are what we need. Depending upon what motherboard you have will depend upon which standoffs you need. If you look right here, it's not going to show up too well on camera because of lighting, because we don't have an overhead light. But it says ATX, Micro ATX, and Mini ITX. And if you look here, you'll see an A, an M, and an I next to some of them. You notice there's no I here? ITX doesn't go that far. If you look down here, you'll see only an A because a Micro ATX doesn't go that far.
No.
And you'll see an M here because the Micro ATX screws in only here.
Okay. Yep.
So we have a full-size ATX board, so we're going to use the bottom.
We're going to use all the A's.
So you're going to need 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's one already here. 6, 7. You need 7. Well, there's already 2 there, so can you find 7 over there?
Yep, right there.
Okay. Now, there's a variety of ways to do it. I don't think they... Oh, they did. Somebody commented on this on a previous video. We have a handy tool. A ratchet is incredibly useful, and we've discussed this, and I've shown this on many other videos because it sits right in there, and it makes it easy to put on. And somebody said, why aren't you using the screw adapter tool? And I'm like, what screw adapter tool? And they're like, they provide a thing for you to do that so you don't have to have a ratchet. Oh, these things are wonderful. I mean, if proper tools, trying to work on anything physical without the proper tools sucks. Get tools, get decent tools. Get magnetic tip screwdrivers, get the right small size screwdrivers. For cutting off the twist ties, get yourself a pair of clippers, or, I mean, you can use scissors, but these, they're tight, they're short, they're focused, they cut right into it easily. Kitchen scissors, trying to cut those things off. So I have been using, hang on, you'll have to forgive me. I'm 12 years old. Sorry.
So
she'll attest to that.
Or that?
So here's the kicker. This, if the camera will show it, this is designed to let you take a standard screwdriver and put it in here.
And then take
then that
in there.
That's because I'm sitting here going, there's no way a normal person could use the... Now, I've been building computers a long time.
Yes.
I built computers when they didn't include these things.
Yes.
I've had the wrench, or the socket wrench, for so long, I never even looked for these. And somebody in a previous video said, why aren't you using the adapter? I'm like, they include one now? Tech didn't know. So, rather than use the ratchet, which our viewers probably won't have, we're going to use the tool that comes with it. And so this is where you have to use your fingernails. You got to put your fingers around it to hold onto the bottom, honey, to keep it straight. Or you'll cross thread.
That's straight.
Okay. Well, then screw it in. Has to go all the way flush.
Flush?
Mm-hmm. Don't break it, but, oh, careful. You're pushing on the metal. This metal is not very thick. You'll bend this if you push down on it.
It's not thick at all. Can I get it?
You shouldn't be able to get your fingernail under it. Yeah, you got it perfectly.
I did?
Good job.
All right.
Do the other 7. And I'll stand here and make...
7?
Yeah.
I already have 1.
Do the other 6. I was too busy trying to say I'll just sit here and make funny faces at you while you do the other 7, but you know, then you shot that down by pointing out that there's 6 more. Tech the wise and foolish and silly. We're having fun. Building computers is a family. Good job, sweetheart. The first computer you build will take you a long time to go through it bit by bit. You'll take your time. You'll measure everything 27 times. You'll be extra super careful. I hope you're extra super careful. Pentium 4, even Pentium 3 era. We'd have times we'd have 20 computers to build for an office. And you just lay all the parts out. You have
20?
a couple of, yeah.
Oh, wow. All right.
I think the most we ever built for one company was, I remember we did 25 for one company, but they weren't identical. I think it was 21 or 22.
So now if I
You know what it was? It was 20 identical machines, but we built 22 of them for 2 spares. And then they had 2 high-end machines for 2 people, and then they had the server. So when you've got 22 identical machines, you need a couple of 8-foot folding tables, and the first one takes a little bit to build, but by the time you get to your 10th, you're just going crazy.
Okay, I went and checked them all.
Awesome. I do believe they're all installed now.
Yes, they are.
Did you get all of them in?
I got them all in.
Awesome. Now there's something else we have to put in here before we can put the motherboard in place. The I/O shield.
Oh, yes.
That'll be inside the motherboard box.
we need to put the I/O shield on.
Okay, well, since you told me, then we'll definitely do that.
So what do you do with that? Do you hold
Put it
that?
on your mod mat.
Well, my mod mat's busy.
I'm sorry.
You told me to put these all here.
You can move them.
I can move them.
You have opposable thumbs.
Oh, that's heavy.
Make sure that you have your motherboard manual. You will need your motherboard manual. Now, these are online. You can get these PDF versions on the website, but if this is your first computer, you won't have a computer to pull it up. So we'll set that over here for the moment. Now, if I say nothing at all, let's see what she does.
Well,
There is, in fact, instructions on how to install it in the manual. So, I mean, if you're doing this by yourself, a lot of this stuff is either in the quick install guide, in the motherboard manual, or in the box or something else. Now, you're holding it like this, and I want you to look at the cutouts, and I want you to look at the motherboard, and I want you to tell me if you think that's right.
yeah, because they're down there. Oh, well, which way is it going to go in? Well, it'll have to go in that way. Oh, that'll have to go on the top. So it would have to go that way.
Very good. Some of the things that we do when we film these are concessions to the camera.
Yes.
I would never tell somebody to do this when they're actually building it.
Right.
So we're doing this for the camera. So, see the lip? It goes on the inside.
Yes.
And it just clips in. Just snaps into place.
What do you think just snaps into place?
The corners. Push one corner in, then the next corner.
Oh. 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 Cool. Yay.
Yep, there you go. And so the headphone jacks there are in the middle of the board.
Yeah.
And then the USB and that is up there. And so we will put this back flat. Again, you would do this flat for
Yeah,
real,
yeah.
but we turned it up so that the overhead would see it.
Exactly.
Now, if you look, you'll see the 9 posts on the board,
Yes.
on the inside the case.
Yes.
If you look carefully at the motherboard, you'll see the same 9 holes on the board. And we also want to make sure that this cable is out of the way so you can put your motherboard in. The other thing to think about,
So these sit on top.
these posts sit on the holes.
Yes.
Here's the thing to think about. You cannot put the board flat in and then slide it over without scraping it.
So you kind of have to do the angle thing.
Let me demonstrate once and I'll hand it back to you and let you do it. Suggestion on holding the board. This section is weaker. This section with all of these RAM slots is a little bit stronger.
Okay.
Ideally, you'd hold it here.
Right.
The case doesn't let you. You don't really have that choice.
Right.
So when holding it, putting your thumb here,
Okay.
rather than holding it down here, because this is where the weight is.
Yes.
So don't hold it down here, hold it here.
Okay.
And do you notice how this sticks out a bit?
Yes.
And then these stick out?
Yes.
You have to insert those into the holes, but you have to do it at an angle because you can't go flat and over because you'll scrape.
Correct.
So what you do is, and there's not a lot of clearance because it's not that big of a case.
It's no clearance.
You can also hold it by the
Oh,
cooler.
by the cooler. You can.
Do you see how I'm inserting it into those holes? Well, I can't see because...
Down a bit, but yeah. Jump.
Now, take a look at the angle of the board.
Yes.
Once you slide those into the holes,
Then you can.
then you set the board down. Now that I've shown you, got it?
Mm-hmm.
You've got the board?
I've got the board.
You've got the
I've
board.
got the board. But how are you supposed to? How are you supposed to?
Very carefully.
This is tricky.
It's also tricky on a desk this tall.
There we go. Do I get it?
Yes.
And
Push and hold it. You have to hold the board. The board has nothing to hold it in place. It'll keep sliding that way.
well, isn't it in?
It's not locked into anything.
No, no, but it's in the hole.
Yes, it's in the holes. But you have to hold pressure on the board or the board will slide across the posts.
Oh.
There's nothing to keep the board from sliding. So you need to look where the holes are. They're not lined up.
So you need to push a little bit of, right?
Okay? So you have to hold it.
Okay, and then you got to put these in.
And then you got to screw it in.
All right, well, that's why I have you.
Is this why you brought your husband?
That's what.
Does it matter where you put your first screw?
Middle one.
So I was going for the right one. I watched him enough. Yay, rogue.
Halfway? Okay. Now put all the others in halfway.
All the others in halfway.
Yeah. You want to make sure the boards fit and alignment is right, everything is straight. You want to make sure that the connectors on the back are good, nothing's blocking them. You want to make sure that just everything is... See why the magnetic screwdriver is so much better?
Totally.
I can't tell you how many screws I lost in cases before I got a magnetic screwdriver. It's one of those things that it's like, oh, that's the best $3 I ever spent. So now we've got all the screws partially in place. Go ahead and tighten them up.
You happy with that?
Yeah, I'm just making sure that none of the metal pieces are blocking any of the ports.
Yes.
You know how that happens sometimes?
I remember.
We've had that conversation.
We've had that conversation.
I just realized that this B450 Tomahawk has a BIOS flashback button. I don't remember that the B350 had one. So folks, we are having to cut that again because in the process of looking at her audio, make sure it was recording. Again, this is the first time we've tried a dual audio record, so it's our first time. I love you, honey.
Oh, me too.
So, well, she's good at the screws, but she's not good at which size screw that she needs. Anyway, there's two different size screws with two different size threads. There's small threads and big threads, and the heads are different size as well.
And I used the wrong one.
I don't know why you grabbed the small ones. You like the big one.
Silly me.
Yeah, yes. So it does matter which size screws you use.
Check your screws.
Go ahead and use the big ones.
The big ones.
It's a motherboard. It needs big screws.
I need my screwdriver.
Oh, did I take your screwdriver?
You stole it.
I'm sorry. I didn't steal it.
You did.
It likes me. I bought it a drink.
Oh, that's much better.
See how nice that goes in
Yes.
Does that feel right?
Yes.
The right screw.
Oh, boy. Sweetheart, there is nothing that you have done that I haven't done before myself. If any of you watching this do something wrong, put the wrong screw in, have a problem, do not beat yourself up. I've done it. Everyone who's built computers has done it. Even that guy at The Verge did it.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
The only thing I will say, and the difference between somebody like me who has screwed up many times, and that poor gentleman at The Verge who screwed up everything, that video is atrocious, is that after having his errors pointed out to him, let's just say he was defensive and didn't learn anything.
Oh no.
The real challenge is, can you go, oops, kind of screwed that up.
I did.
How about we fix that?
I did.
It's okay. To err is human.
Yes.
To ignore your errors is dumb.
It's stupid.
Is stupid.
Okay.
So don't do that.
So use the right screw.
Use the right screws.
I didn't know there was different screws.
Or, yes. Okay, so we put the screws in. Now, Tech has lost his mind completely. I have no idea where we're at on this build. So we've put the, if you're ever confused about what step to take next, it's a good thing to take a step back and go, okay, inventory time, what have I done? We've got our case out, we took our parts out, we got our motherboard, we put our CPU on, we put our cooler on, we put our SSD on our M.2. Now we wouldn't have done that if we had only 2.5-inch SSDs, which I'd pick up right now and show you, but it fell on the floor. That was my fault. So we've got that installed. We've got the motherboard installed in. We did put the IO shield in. We made sure that the ports are not blocked. You can see right here that all of the ports are visible. There's a little bit of a springiness to it because there's some flex pieces. But what you want to make sure is that none of the pieces of metal back there are sticking out or blocking any of the ports, because that's a big pain in the neck. We've got our BIOS flashback port. That is a nice feature on a B450 board. You got an HDMI port. You've got a DVI. I pointed to the DVI and said HDMI. You have a HDMI port. You've got a DVI port.
Yeah.
Those are what we're going to plug our monitor into, because the HDMI is because we have Vega 3 integrated graphics. If we had a Ryzen 5 2600 CPU, then those wouldn't work because there's no integrated graphics on the other CPUs. So those are completely non-functional, but they're there for CPUs that have integrated graphics. We have sound, we have USB Type-C, we have our gigabit Ethernet.
Yep.
Oh, that slow gigabit. I know.
Gigabit.
Are you a gigabit snob?
I'm a 10 gigabit snob. What is this right here? That is a PS2 port.
Oh.
That is from 1987, when IBM introduced the Personal System 2 in an attempt to regain control.
Why is it still on there?
Because we still use them all these years later.
Welcome to 2019.
There are some devices that want a PS2 port. There are some people who still use old PS2 keyboards. There are some latency and boot reasons.
I know the end of the, yes, I know the end that you're talking about.
There are a handful of people who want such a port. They continue to include it at this point because, as far as I know, it costs them virtually nothing to put it on there. Okay. And to be completely blunt, there's probably some factory in China with 8 billion of those little pieces of plastic sitting in a warehouse.
It's like the chicken, that bit of the chicken. What are we going to do with it?
We'll put it there. That's where it's going. So
Okay, cool.
they have PS2 ports.
All right.
In any case, that's enough.
Okay.
Now, while we have the case up here, this is a good chance to point out the power supply. The power supply shroud does not come off on this case.
It doesn't?
No, what we do is we take, those are on really tight. Screwdriver? Nope, you do it. You're doing everything. Unscrew those screws for me.
Unscrew?
Yes, unscrew.
Okay, I can do that.
It's kind of hard to undo that once you've done it.
Oh, does it not come all the way out?
You have to do both.
Oh, but it stays in there?
It stays in there.
Oh, I was expecting
You actually screw the power supply onto that bracket and then drop the whole thing into place. So if you look, hang on, if you look, 1, 2, 3,
and then you screw those.
you actually put the power supply onto this and screw this onto the power supply, and then you take the whole thing with the power supply and drop it in.
Okay. Okay.
So that's how that works.
Okay.
So what we want to do is we want to take a look in there, which the camera's not going to show, but you see all those cables?
Yep.
That's going to block the power supply.
Oh.
So that informs us as to what to do next. Take the back panel off.
Take the back panel off. I really probably don't need to use this, do I?
No. Don't lose those.
No.
Back panel is off.
So here we are with the back panel of the computer case taken off. You can see here the back of the motherboard through the motherboard access port. You can see the back plate where the CPU is.
Yeah.
And then we see these lovely long cables which are in the way of several things. They're in the way of where the power supply is going to go. And you notice that we actually have hidden hard drive trays back here behind the shroud, which is not removable. And so these pull out the back. Yeah, I don't like that design either.
Which means you would have to take the back off.
Well, most people, once they build a computer, never touch this stuff. Here's the thing. What you're really going to put there is hard drives. To be honest, if you want to go buy yourself a 2 terabyte or 4 terabyte hard drive for your Steam library or games, buy an external USB drive and plug it in.
Yeah.
The performance difference, I have tested this, between running games on an external hard drive that supports modern USB 3.0 or 3.1 standards versus putting it in internally is virtually zero. It's
Zero.
It's trivial.
There you go.
And it is so much easier just to plug in the hard drive externally. I mean, you can certainly do it here, but if you're not doing it while you build the computer, you got to run a SATA cable, you got to run a power cable, you got to...
Exactly.
The whole thing's a pain in the neck. Just plug an external drive in and be done with it. This is a 2.5-inch SSD. And this is not in the $300 budget.
No.
But this was on the shelf. I've used this drive before. This is a actually a terrible drive that I would not recommend anybody buy. I know that sounds horrible, doesn't it? Here, it was cheap at the time, but it was terrible even a couple years ago when I bought it. I've had this drive now for probably, I don't know, 2-3 years at this point. It's a Silicon Power S55. Now, they don't make this drive anymore. They now make newer drives, and
Are they better?
yes, I built with one of those. So the newer silicon drives are better, but the ones that look like this, with this coloring and S55, yeah, these are awful.
Run away.
But they've made better ones since then. But I've seen that with other companies too. A number of years ago, Kingston made a V-series drive. They were absolute garbage.
You were very unhappy.
But here's the kicker: the Kingston drives today are very nice. The A400, the U400, I've got an NVMe Kingston drive on my i7 8700K test bench. It's a great drive. But years ago, they sucked. But that was then, and this is now, and times change. So you really can't draw a sweeping pattern and say, well, just because one product from a company sucked means everything they ever make for all time will suck. So would I use a modern silicon power drive today? Yeah, if the price is cheap enough. Would I use this one? No. That's why we're going to put it in here. It's something to put in. This actually installs over here. There's a tray on the other side. We have to flip the case over, where this is going to mount there. So we are going to put nothing there. Nothing. Absolutely zilch, zero, nothing. Now we do have internal drives, and if we wanted to put an internal hard drive down there, we could. Newsflash, this isn't actually going to be a computer we use for anything. We are building this for the channel. We're building this to demonstrate the value of the machine. We're building this to give Rogue a computer to build. I am not going to be using a 2-core, 4-thread machine for anything. You know, it's not that bad. If you're doing email, internet access, web, documents, Excel spreadsheets, light image editing, it's honestly fine. You know, shipping computer downstairs? Downstairs, we have a shipping computer that's the Ryzen 5 2400G. 4 cores, 8 threads. I can't hold all my fingers up. 3.7 gigahertz. It's got Vega 11 graphics. It will demolish this CPU in benchmarks and tests. I print out UPS shipping labels. I do eBay listings. I do, what else do I do down there? Look up stuff. I check the Tech Deals Discord. Yeah. I check the Tech Deals Twitter while I'm sitting there. I load in images I take from the digital camera of things. Yes. Do you think that computer would really be any worse for that purpose with this CPU versus a 150? Because the Ryzen 5 2400G is a $150 CPU. This is a $60 CPU.
That's true. No, this would do just fine.
This would do just fine. Do you know why this isn't going down there? Because we already have the other one. Because we have a YouTube channel. But if I didn't have a YouTube channel, this would be an ideal application for that situation, because it just doesn't need more than that for what that computer does. Likewise, while this SSD is not great, for what I would use extra storage for, now, the ADATA SSD, this right here, we're kind of interrupting the build here to discuss this. What can I say? I'd love to teach. This is a good SSD. This is a good, the SU800 from ADATA. This is a good, solid mid-range drive. Now, at the 128 gig drive size, it's not the fastest. The bigger drives are faster. I've tested it. There's a video comparing this to the bigger ones on my channel. But for what this machine is, it's fine. And you know, they're like 20, 25 bucks. So this would just be used for storing some pictures and images like I take for pictures for when I sell this stuff on eBay. People watch these videos and they say, what do you do with all your hardware? I buy most of the stuff on this channel. And we keep some of it, we test some of it, we've done some giveaways, and then we sell some of it on eBay when we're done. Some people have wondered, do I buy stuff? Somebody commented in the RTX 2060 video, they're going, oh, so if you like 3 of them, that means you got 3 to return back to Newegg, right? No. No, first of all, if I returned that much stuff to Amazon and Newegg, they'd stop selling to me. They actually ban buyers for abusing return privileges. Second of all, that's unethical. You're returning used stuff at, you know, why are you just can't keep returning stuff like that. And then third, I will keep those things for some period of time. So I haven't sold any of the RTX 2060s yet. I might not sell them for months. I'll want to use them for some type of test. I'll use 1 or 2 of them in builds. I'll put 1 or 2 of them on my, I'll keep at least 1 for my test bench. And then maybe I'll sell 2 or 3 of them. So I'll wait till the next cryptocurrency craze, and then we'll sell them for crazy money. Well, that's what I do with all those GTX 1070s. So, am I getting off track?
Yes.
I'm sorry. Sorry, folks. This is supposed to be fun. You're hanging out with Tech and Rogue. You all only have to hang out with me for an hour. She gets to live with me for her whole life. And we're back. So we've taken the case off of the desk. Rogue's going to open up the power supply and show you this epic, awesome beast of a power supply. I know, it's a power supply. Just take it out of the box.
Does it matter how you grab it?
Just grab it.
Just grab it.
There's the power cable. There's the box. These are important. That's how you screw it in.
Mustard cables.
Ketchup, too. So you need to screw this in first.
Okay.
This is the part that sticks out. And it needs to go this way. And the reason why it needs to go this way is because that's the bottom of the computer, and this pulls in air from the bottom of the computer,
Yep.
blows it to the power supply, and then blows it out the back. This is the rear power switch.
Yep.
Right there. Because if you look, screw hole, screw hole, screw hole, and screw hole.
So just match the screw holes up.
Yep. Don't try to screw it into the wrong hole.
Or use the wrong screw.
Well, the power supplies always come with the screws. So use the screws that come with the power supplies. But if you actually look, you'll notice these are the same screws that you screwed the motherboard into the case.
Kind of.
They are the same.
Okay, that one doesn't want to go.
We have to be delicate. She's gentle. You can't just shove it in. So rough.
So now these have to be finger tight? Like that?
Yeah, and go ahead and undo all that. You can undo it once it's in there, but then it's a mess. That you want to unscrew. We gotta start a drinking game. Every time we say screw, they have to take a drink.
Is that it?
Yeah. Stick it in there. The fan goes to the bottom.
Okay.
And then pull the cables out the side. And don't let it bite your fingers.
Yeah, got me.
And then screw it in. I personally prefer the ones that you actually put it in sideways and then screw it into the back of the case, but that's me. Different cases will do this differently.
There you go.
And now your power supply is installed.
Okay.
And so at this point, we're going to turn the case this way because look at this mess. A couple of things.
Ay, 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 ay.
This is our 24-pin ATX power connector. That's what goes into the
Yep.
motherboard.
Yep.
Set that aside for the moment.
Right.
One of the nice things about modular power supplies is you only have to plug in the cables you really need.
Okay.
But those cost more money.
Yeah, they do.
This is our CPU power connector, and that's what plugs up here into the corner. And we know it's our CPU connector because it's an 8-pin connector that splits into 4+4.
Okay.
The PCI Express power connectors for the video cards are 6+2.
Yes.
So that's that.
Okay.
We're doing an inventory to see what we've got first before we go any further. This, with our lovely mustard cables,
Yes.
this is actually a, yikes, that's twisted and tied. Well, whatever, we can deal with that. This is a 6+2 and a 6+2. So if we had a video card installed that needed 2 8-pin connectors, for example, if you wanted to install a RTX 2080, like a ROG Strix or something, this would give you all the cables you need on the end of one cord. What they're saying is that this one cable is capable of delivering 300 watts of power. Each 6-pin connector is 75. Each 8-pin connector is 150. Here's what's interesting. It really isn't, because it's all down to the power supply.
But I don't need to worry about that because we're not putting in a graphics card.
No, but this is the teaching moment. The 8-pin connector is a ground. All it does is tell the video card that there's an 8-pin plug there.
Okay.
It doesn't actually do anything. All the power, either 75 or 150, comes through there. And because these are daisy chained, basically what it's saying is that the one cable can basically provide 300 watts of power
Okay, cool.
from a 500 watt power supply.
Wow.
In truth, if you're really going to plug in an RTX 2080, a $700 to $800 video card, buy a better power supply.
Yeah.
This is the wrong power supply. Now, as you correctly noted, we don't need this.
Correct.
We don't have a video card in here.
No.
I'm not going to put a video card in here. We have Vega 3 graphics.
Correct. Yay.
They beat the heck out of Intel's integrated graphics.
There you go.
So we'll set that aside for just a minute. We'll take a look at some more.
They look similar.
This is a 3-prong connector here. These are serial ATA power connectors. For hard drives and SSDs, they plug in just like that. But not here, obviously, because they don't do anything. Although the cool thing about SSDs is this doesn't care. You wouldn't want to trade a hard drive like this with the computer running, but the SSD wouldn't care.
Okay.
I don't want to admit it,
Yes.
but I've built computers where I didn't have a mounting place for an SSD, and I just plugged it in and stuck it in the bottom of the computer case.
Don't say that.
It doesn't matter, actually. I've had them run for years like that. It just sits there. If it's a desktop that you never move, and it quite literally sits in the corner under your desk and no one touches it, it really doesn't matter. So we'll take that out very gently. Put that over there. So we can plug in 3 drives, which we're not going to do.
We're not going to do.
Oh, we already did that one. This is another 3-plug
Look.
connector. So we could plug 6 drives in here. Drives, by the way, don't use a lot of power. Most SSDs use between 2 to 5 watts of power at full load, not idle.
Okay.
Hard drives might, a really old, bad, terrible hard drive might use 10 on a bad day.
Okay.
Hard drives are not big power
Right.
users. This, they still keep including these. These are colloquially known as Molex connectors.
The Molex.
These are not Molex connectors, by the way.
Oh, they're not.
Everybody calls them Molex connectors. These are not, but Molex connectors were not evenly shaped on both sides. They were square on one end and rounded on the other.
Right.
Molex was a trademark name, and it was a short-term standard back in the dinosaur days.
Okay.
These, I cannot remember off the top of my head what they're called, but everybody calls them Molex connectors because they look really similar to what a real Molex connector
What are they
was.
for?
These would be for old school hard drives from 10 to 15 years ago or older.
So we don't need them.
Old school CD and DVD drives from 10 years or older. This is a floppy drive power connector.
A floppy drive.
But this is actually a 3.5-inch floppy.
Yeah.
This is not what a 5.25-inch floppy would have
The-
used.
yeah.
The small floppy.
Yeah.
This continues to be included just because why not, and for backwards. And I'm sure there's a factory in China that has 318 billion of these connectors sitting in bins somewhere, and they're like, we have to get our money's worth and use them all. Cable management.
Yes.
First of all, we don't need all of these connectors. If we want to put that 2.5-inch SATA SSD, and we're going to put it in partly to show everybody how to do it, we don't need both of these cables. So we're going to tie one off, and actually what I'm going to do is I'm going to wrap it around. I'll let you do the next one. I'm going to wrap it around, and we'll take our zip tie. And we'll just do that. And this is where these come in really handy because they're short and they're sweet and they get the job done easily.
And you cut it right off at the thing.
Yeah. This is just going to be stuffed in here, never to be seen again.
Okay.
Now, this one we'll need for the drive.
Right.
We will never use this cable. So I'm going to give a zip tie to Rogue. I want you to fold it and fold it and fold it until you can't fold it anymore. Zip it off.
Like that?
Sure. There you go. It's a zip tie. If you've never used a zip tie, well, just pull tight. There you go, my love.
Oh,
That's okay.
going.
It went to the trash pile. Stuff it down in there and we'll never see it again. Because remember, with the power supply, the intake air, because the power supply needs cooling, air comes in the bottom, comes out the back, nothing here is hurting the power supply.
Okay.
There's no airflow issues, there's no, that will never be seen again.
Okay.
Now we do need this one.
Yes.
We will need this if we ever want to plug a video card in. I don't plan to, but I want to make a point. We have a premium motherboard here that could easily take a Ryzen 7
if
CPU.
It's gonna upgrade it.
If we want to upgrade it, we will eventually want to put a
But we
video
don't-
card.
Is it best to tie it off or just to put it down there?
Well, I would tie it off because we have plenty of zip ties. But
Right.
what I would do is I would tie it off and stick it in this hole to separate it from those.
Right.
Because this way you see the cable, and if you upgrade your CPU,
Then-
the cable will be here. You could just pull it out and stick it through this slot.
Right.
So I would tie it. I would zip tie it, and I would just stuff it down in there.
Okay.
The other benefit to zip tying it is you get less banging and less chance of it unfolding and going where you don't want it to. Now, of course, zip tying it there would block hard drive access if we were going to put hard drives in, but we'll never put hard drives in.
We're not, so.
To be blunt, if we ever upgrade this machine to a Ryzen 7, I would replace the M.2 drive with a 1 terabyte, probably Samsung,
Samsung.
SSD, and that would be the drive. And I would replace this with another 1 terabyte drive and be done with it. So,
So that goes down there.
yeah, it's fine. It just sits there. And I would do just like that. You can actually stuff it in. Another option, if you wanted to,
Is to put it in there.
is to put it in there. I mean, that's never going to bother anything.
No, that's true.
This we will need,
Yep.
but we're going to leave it out here for the moment because it's smaller. Do your small cables last.
Ah,
Now we're going to do the big cables first.
okay.
And if you reach through here, you'll feel, I mean, the camera can't see it, but it is right here. That's where your 24-pin ATX connector is.
Right.
Do you see all these loops right here?
Yep.
Zip tie points.
Yep.
We're going to take this and we're going to stick it through like that. I'll show you why in a minute. And then we're going to turn the computer over. See the clip right here?
I do.
Do you see how these go together like that?
Yep.
That doesn't clip, that just rests.
Ah.
You're going to hold that together. I'm showing you first.
Oh, okay.
Clip around like this. This is a very stiff cable.
Ah.
It's going to go in here. If you push, you run the risk of breaking the board. The motherboard is supported
Oh,
here and here.
You need.
You've got to put your fingers behind
remember
here. So I'm going to give you this.
I got the cables.
You got the cables.
Oh, I see what you mean about stiff.
It's
And then you.
straight in. Support the back of the board
Yeah.
and then keep pushing. Basically push the board and the cable together. Push up from the bottom of the
Is it
board.
supposed to click?
Yes. The table's up a bit high. I realize the angle's hard for you.
I can't get the click.
Don't push down without pushing up.
I am. Look. Look. Evidence.
It's hard with the table up this high.
Do you want to put it down?
Yeah, lower the table a bit.
Lowering.
We do have a power table. It's just...
Lowering the tower.
Oh, there we go.
Tell me when.
Stop.
Magic. That's tricky. Do you have to take it out and do it again?
No, this power connector design is 25-ish years old.
It needs to change.
It badly needs a replacement. 2 or 3 smaller connectors that were easy to slide right in would be a much better design. That big cable is awful.
So when this happens, do you take it out and put it back in, or do you?
No, actually what it was is both ends were in and the center section wasn't quite in, so I had to push it on the center section. And that clipped in place.
Okay.
Bring the table back up. So now that that's in place, we're going to turn the computer back over. See this right here?
Yeah, that's floppy.
Flopping in the breeze, as we would say.
You don't have to tie it off much. In fact, if you just tie it, if we bring it down here, do you see how this part is further down?
Yes.
If we bring it down here, just tie it off there.
And then
It won't go anywhere.
you've got them. You might as well use them. There we go.
It's not going anywhere.
Okay.
Now we have the CPU power connector. Boy, it sure makes a cable mess, doesn't it?
Sure does.
Here's the trick to the CPU power connector. It has to go through this hole right here.
So are you better off bringing it underneath and bringing it over?
No.
No.
This is what the tie-offs on the side here are for. The clip is on the top. So you see this?
Yes.
So it goes around.
Bloody hell.
I didn't design it. Why do you think I like my big cases?
What engineer needs a slap?
How many times have I said I love my nice, big, roomy cases?
Yes.
Do you see why now?
Absolutely. And things that just work. Well, you would choose things that just go together.
Yes, but if you work for a computer assembly company, they pick all the cheapest components.
Well, that's not my job. Okay, this is already pissing me off.
This is actually the easy part.
What? No, it's not. I'm all arms. I can't.
Would you like me to help you?
My hair's in the way.
You have lovely hair.
I need to be able to get in here.
Can I show you his trick?
Yes.
Okay. Just like that.
There you go.
How about we just leave that for the time being?
Just a little bit.
There we go. It's all in the wrist.
Yeah, you had to.
I twisted, turned, and once I got the angle, I could go straight down and they clip right on. Those clip on easily when you get the angle right.
Yeah.
But now that we've got that on, now we're going to turn. Now, if we were not building this for the camera, I would do this with the computer sitting up normal and just work on both sides. I wouldn't be turning it over. For those of you watching me turning it, I'm doing this for the camera. I would not advise you. See how this is on top of the motherboard?
That would be bad.
These are the voltage regulators. These are the RAM modules. This is why I want you to tie it off all three.
All three of them?
All three of them. Getting into those, yeah, I know. It sucks. And not in the good way.
If women did this, we would so do this differently.
Is this designed by a man?
This is designed by a man. He wasn't thinking. I'm just saying.
Girl designed computers.
God, that actually work. Well, no, the reason why it takes so long is... No, never mind. There you go.
I heard that.
Didn't hear a word.
I heard that. It's good design, isn't it?
Right.
Do we need one on that one?
No. I mean, if you want to, but no. So that is secure, and that's not going to get in the way of the motherboard. This is secure.
Yep.
So now that that's secure, this is going to be, I know it's kind of floppy, this is going to be for our drive, which is right over here. For the moment, I'm going to stick it through here, although we might move it to here. I just want to get it out of the way.
Oh, okay.
And the reason is we're not...
So we're not untying these ones then?
Generally, no. Often you don't have to untie them because what they're going to do is they're either going to go through here or up through... There's no access point there. They're going to have to go through here.
Okay.
We may actually...
That one will have
This one may end up going through through here.
Okay.
We'll have to see. These cables now need to go through here. I'll show you what we do with them in a minute when we turn it over. But see how it's starting to get cleaned up over here?
That's starting to look good.
Managing cables is a third of building a whole computer.
Yeah,
Figuring out how to wire everything is by far,
And where everything has to go, and you're backwards,
and especially if you're not used to doing it.
Yes.
Now, I've never built in this case, but after a while you build enough cases, you get the idea.
it doesn't have sharp edges. I like that.
The cases that are 20 bucks cheaper than this have the awful
I know,
interior
I've
metal.
seen
I
it.
will never build in one of those again.
No.
And it's powder coated.
I've reached a point in my life, I've built hundreds and hundreds of computers in
Well, you
those.
don't have to.
I will never do it again. If we look in here,
Look
you're,
in here.
you're going to see this connection point. Oh, there is an access point right here. Well, we'll have to think about this.
Okay.
You have, these are SATA port data cables. On our SATA drive, we have power and data.
Yep.
That's where the data plugs in.
Okay.
That is for this big cable. That's the USB 3 front panel connector. That's for these
Yes. That's
three
the-
connectors.
So
This is the HD audio right here, and this unfortunately plugs in here,
remember
which
that.
is awful. This provides the headphone and microphone jack for the front. Note to everybody watching, if you have trouble running the HD audio cable and you never are going to use your headphone and microphone jacks in the front, you don't have to run this. If you could just tie it off and leave it in here, and
Then don't wonder why it doesn't work.
well, yeah, and then 3 years later you go to plug it in, going, my computer's
doesn't work.
I didn't plug it in.
And then these
Oh yes.
are the
We
frickin'
have to
front.
Look in the thing to do the thing to.
They plug in USB. I hope it's not there. If it's there, I'm going to complain. It's JUSB. It is there. Ugh. Okay, we should actually run it through there. Okay. I would love to show you what's about to happen, but short of having a camera person or setting it up on a tripod at a 45-degree angle, that won't capture it with our hands in the way. So we're going to cut
Yep.
to having this finished.
Yep.
And with a bunch of running around, changing the height of the table and playing around with cables, we have the, I'm going to tilt it for the overhead camera. We have the HD audio connector in.
Yep.
We have the front panel audio connectors in, which is really hard to film.
That was tricky.
We have the USB 3 front panel connector running all through the bottom here.
Yep.
It just is what it is. So
It is a little tricky.
take your time. Look at the motherboard manual. The instructions are in there. The pinouts, the place to plug it is in there.
Yep.
Don't be afraid to plug it in and make sure that the missing pins, because a lot of the connectors are missing one blocked pin.
Yes.
Double check your connections, make sure, because the USB connectors, the front panel connector plug, and the HD audio plug all have the same 10 pins, but the missing pin is in a different spot.
Yes.
So they all look the same down there. Take your time. Measure 3 times, cut half. So with those out of the way, you can see that we have our serial ATA data cable.
Yes.
This is, by the way, why I'd like to give a shout out for the fact that I would like motherboards to just start coming with like 3 M.2 slots.
Yes.
And I would like to just go all M.2 everything, because how easy was that?
That was freaking super easy.
Okay, now you're going to take your screwdriver, which you have, and you're going to undo this screw right here.
That one?
Yes. This is the mounting plate for the 2.5-inch drive. This is our high quality, super performance, absolutely amazing Silicon Power Serial ATA 3 S55.
So does it come, what does it just look
Pull
like?
it off.
Oh.
There are 4 screw holes.
Oh.
If you look carefully at your drive,
You have 4 screw holes.
you have 4 screw holes.
Do you use these little screw holes or something else?
Those can sometimes work, but you should actually have smaller screws. Look how this is mounted, because this is how you pulled it off with these 2 pins in there.
Correct.
The cable's on the bottom, so the drive goes upside down. And so now that we've turned it over, now we need small screws that go into here. Those are usable, but there's actually even smaller screws. You're the boss, girl. You're the queen. You're Rogue Storm.
Queen of the Seas.
Link to your highly active Twitch channel down in the video description below.
I'm too busy doing this.
I know. We streamed a lot on Twitch, both of us. Both of our Twitch channels are in the video
How
description.
the bloody hell do you get this in here?
There it goes.
We streamed a lot over the Christmas holiday together. We aren't streaming as much these days because we have YouTube videos to make. You can be a full-time Twitch streamer or you can be a full-time YouTuber. You really can't be a full-time both tubers, streamers, Twitch tubers.
Twitch tubers.
You streamers, I don't know. It made sense in my head. For those of you watching this, we started filming this just after dinner, and it's starting to get past Rogue's bedtime.
It is.
The kids are being very quiet downstairs.
I know.
Those of you who have kids will understand what we just said.
All right, so now
Put it in.
like that? How?
Before you put it in, it'll be easier to plug
Yeah,
the cables
I
in
was gonna
before.
say.
This is a serial ATA data cable. There are clips on both ends, and if you look at the connectors, there's L shapes.
Mm-hmm.
There's L shapes on the power connectors as well.
Yes.
So they only go in one way.
Right.
So we have 6 different connectors to pick from. However,
How do you know which one to put it in?
first of all, if it's the only drive in the system, it actually doesn't matter.
It doesn't.
Generally, you should put it in whatever number 1 is, but it generally doesn't matter. However, on most motherboards, this included, when you put a M.2 drive in, you disable a certain number of ports.
Correct. I
Because
remember
there are not enough HSIO lanes to handle
Correct,
which is technically an Intel term, but whatever.
Which is why I asked the question.
So you have to get the manual. And you have to go to the chart. Oh, you want me to go to the manual and the
Know
chart?
where it is.
I don't know where it is. I've hardly looked at this thing.
You know what you're looking for. I don't.
I do know what I'm looking for. Important, SATA 5 and SATA 6 ports will be unavailable when installing an M.2. Here, I'll turn this over for the camera. SATA 5 and SATA 6 ports will be unavailable when installing an M.2 device in the M.2 slot.
So
Now the question is, which ones are, they're probably the ones on the bottom.
which ones are they?
Oh, they're not. So the ones on the bottom, these 2 down here, is SATA 1 and 2.
Oh, it is.
SATA 5 and 6 are on the top.
Oh, yes.
Can I make a suggestion?
Yes.
Let's run it to this port because we can run the cable down, back, and up, and we don't have to put anything here to make it ugly.
True.
Because we want our computer to be adorable.
Pretty.
You mean the big black industrial thing? Where's the pink and purple?
Yeah, really.
So,
Okay.
you're going to take this. These are bidirectional, by the way. It doesn't matter which order
Oh,
you put them in.
okay, I was going to ask you that.
So-
So it's going to go in like that.
So plug that into,
But you said it's going to, so it's going to go like that.
Yep.
Because of the thing.
yep. And then plug the end of the power cable in. Careful.
Is there a way, is there a trick?
Push harder without bending the circuit board.
You said to be careful.
Yes.
There we go.
So, as we make lots of noise without banging around the computer,
We do.
now stick it in. We'll run the cables.
So that just sits on there.
Yep. It's a handy way to install a drive.
Can't see it because of that. There we go.
Now, let's put that in there. And let's turn the computer over. Now we pull all the excess through. Carefully, there we go. And then we can pull this excess through.
Okay.
Notice how the way it's connected, basically there's nothing on the other side. Except we have this thing flopping about.
Yes.
And then this needs to run,
Where are we going to put it down through there?
we'll actually run it through there. And my apologies for not showing this. So now we've plugged the SATA cable into the front motherboard. It goes into one of those ports, no big deal, but this leaves the bulk of the cable back here. What Rogue is going to do is to find a way to tie it off without cinching this too much because you don't want to damage it. That's where your data is transmitting.
Right.
And then this,
That can get folded.
well, it could get folded, but you got to ask yourself where you want to fold it and tie it off.
So you can kind of fold it together. Can I put it around there, or do you,
You
not
can.
recommend that?
Or around here. Why don't you tie it just like that? It's an art, not a science. I mean, you can do it any way you want. 4 hands helps.
It sure does, doesn't it?
4 hands is easier than 2. Here 6 hands is even better. But 8 is enough. Notice this. This will have to just kind of go like that to avoid being hit by the back panel. We have to ask ourselves, is our build complete? Now we can put the back panel on right now, but is everything in that we need?
CPU, cooler, fan, SSD, M.2, RAM.
RAM. But we don't, the RAM doesn't go on this side.
No.
So I'm going to get the back panel,
Okay.
and let's put that on.
All right.
And I'm going to hand Rogue the panel, and she is going to put it on. With the back panel put on, now the only thing left is the system RAM. Now this system is spec'd, take the RAM. This system is spec'd with 8 gigabytes of RAM at the $300 price point. I don't have 8 gigabytes of RAM, so we have 16 gigs of RAM.
We do.
So it's an extra $40.
So we're putting both of them in?
We're going to go ahead and put both of them in, and the way you do that is these.
It matters which one.
It does.
Put 'em beside each
Generally, you want to put them from the furthest away from the CPU first. It varies, but it really doesn't matter on an AM4 board. But they need to alternate, so they're in dual channel mode. These snap like this.
Yep.
Look on the socket, you'll notice there's a notch in the middle, and the notch is not in the middle, it's offset.
It is.
So if you look at the RAM, you'll notice that it's offset. The RAM goes straight down in and clicks on both sides at the same time. Same way you take out the M.2. Bend the plastic, not the RAM. Not in the middle. There you go. That's actually really pretty RAM. We'll show this to everybody. This is actually fairly budget RAM from G.Skill, but that's kind of nice. It's just a sticker, but it really is budget RAM. That really is a sticker. This is DDR4 3000 CL16. It really is budget RAM. Usually DDR4 3000 would be CL15, but this was cheap, so tell you what, I'll do the first one, you do the second one. See the notch?
Yes.
It goes in the 2 guides on either side.
Okay.
And then we simply push down on both sides, straight down, like that.
Okay. So.
Push down on both sides.
I am.
Push. More pushing.
Ta-da!
You've just installed 16 gigs of RAM.
Woo.
Well, 8 gigs of RAM. I did the other 8, but that's the one place in here where pressure is required. That and the RAM. You have to push.
Actually see.
Well, nicer sticks of RAM with nice big fat heat sinks on them would have you something to push against. These are kind of cheap, but for something like this, it makes sense. Now this is where a graphics card would go for installing one, but we're not. But we put that cable back there.
Correct.
So let's do a quick summary here.
Yes.
We got our case, power supply successfully installed.
Yep.
We have our motherboard in. We have our M.2 SSD in. We have our CPU installed. We have our cooler installed, and it is plugged in, and the cable is up there. It's not going anywhere. We've got our CPU power connector plugged in. It will not boot without that.
Correct.
We have our RAM installed.
Yep.
Mainboard ATX power installed.
Yep.
We have our secondary SSD installed with the cables plugged into our working, verified SATA port,
Yep.
and then power. We've got our front panel USB connectors. We've got our front panel main connectors for power switch, etc. Front panel audio connectors plugged in. But there's one thing left that we have not done. This rear fan is not plugged in. Now there are no front fans in this case, but if you look here, I'll tilt it towards the camera. There are railing mounting points for mounting fans. If you wanted to put more fans into this case, you could certainly put more fans here.
So there's a fan, but that's the power supply.
That's power supply fan.
So this is an exhaust fan.
This is an exhaust fan. Passive air will come in through these side vents and just fill the system, and this will blow the hot air because the CPU will have hot air floating around it. This sucks it out and blows it out the back.
Now, if you had a video card, you would need to put fans in, correct or not?
If you have a substantially powerful video card, this is the wrong case. If you were buying an RTX 2080, it's the wrong power supply, it's the wrong case. Frankly, it's the wrong everything. Build a balanced machine. Buy nicer everything as you upgrade one thing to be nice. So this, remember we moved this out of the way earlier?
We did.
Notice they put a handy dandy connector right there for you? Stick it in.
I'll have to undo it, right?
Nope. Just give it a little bit of a tug. There you go. It only uses 3 of them. Where this is, and with the twist tie, it's actually just fine the way it is. So this is the exhaust fan that's plugged in. Our system build is complete. All that is left at this point is to put the side panel back on,
Yep.
and then to plug it in. We will need a USB thumb drive with Windows 10 on it in order to install Windows, because there is nothing on this drive. We have a video on the channel on how to make that drive. Very easy. You just need a 4 GB or larger USB thumb drive, make a Windows 10 install drive, and you're ready to go. What do you think?
Yippee!
Thank you all so much for being here with Tech and
Rogue.
This has been a fun I've had fun. I don't know if you've had fun. You've had fun, but you're probably ready to be done.
Learning.
So how did you enjoy your first build? Well, originally we talked that your first build was going to be like an i9 or Threadripper or something. Are you glad that we started with this instead?
Oh yeah, very much so.
Is this an easier build to start with? So if viewers are watching and they've never built a computer in their life, should they try some $3,000 build on their first go?
Probably not.
I mean, they could.
Good, with lots of patience.
But you're also using very expensive parts. This is a much cheaper learning experience.
Exactly.
I will say that putting together an i9 is not substantially different than this, except that everything is just fancier. The power supply will have cables that plug into it, so you just use dedicated cables. You'll have probably more SSDs installed. You'll have a nicer cooler, maybe a liquid cooler or a very large tower cooler that you have to put a different backplate on the board.
Yep.
You might have more RAM installed. You have a video card to put into
Yep.
place. The CPU will install a bit different if it's an i9 versus, or the Threadripper is obviously a bit different. You help me with that. Beyond that, the motherboard, the I/O shield, the front panel connectors really isn't that different. It does not matter, and I'm including this here because I want to say this to the audience. It doesn't matter whether you're building a $300 or $3,000 PC. What we just did is largely the same except for colorful differences. Yes, you might install several drives. You might install 4 sticks of RAM. You'll put a video card in, you'll have to run the power cable to it.
Yep.
If you're really exotic, you might put in 2 video cards.
Fans.
There will be additional fans to connect. You might have RGB lighting to hook up. But these are just small additional steps. Putting the posts in, getting the I/O shield in place, putting the motherboard in, making sure that your CPU's in, making sure that the 24-pin ATX power cable is the same whether this is a Threadripper or an Athlon. The CPU power connector up here, if it's a Threadripper, you'll probably have 2 of them. But they plug in the same, you'll just have an extra one. So don't feel that you can't build an Uber machine if you want to. Because Rogue is going to build, she's excited, she is going to build some pretty awesome stuff on the channel. Thank you all so much for watching the video with us. Like this video if you like it, share it with your friends if you loved it. Remember to subscribe to our channel with the big huge red button directly below. Hit the bell notification icon next to that if you'd like to actually be notified when new videos come out. Hit the join button next to the notification button if you'd like to support this channel and see more content like this. If you found this helpful, useful, and interesting, consider becoming a member of the Deal Nation. In the United States, it's $5 a month. It directly supports the channel. You get a loyalty badge for the comment section. You get custom Tech Deals emoji. That loyalty badge and emoji also carries over to our live streams. And of course, you're supporting us and helping us continue making this content. You'll also find other links down in the description below as well, including to Amazon, Newegg, and eBay for all of these parts and general shopping links. Those do support the channel at no extra cost to you. And then Twitch, Twitter, and Discord down there below. Thank you all so much for watching from Tech and
Rogue.
we appreciate you being here. We will see you next time.